Well, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Me and Oscar are here yet again to talk about some fights, and we've got some interesting talking points to talk about on this show. Paul versus Askren, UFC 261. We've also got to talk about Whittaker's performance. It's going to be a great show. Oscar, how's it going?
It was a very eventful weekend in combat sports, just like I predicted, but it really wasn't on the MMA side. It was on the boxing side. Jake Paul got that first round knockout against Ben Askren, and the whole world is talking about it. That fight was very strange. Everything around it was strange. You saw performances by Doja Cat, Ice Cube, and Justin Bieber prior to it. It was very strange. Very weird to see a wrestler box a YouTuber. What happened was what I expected to happen. I expected Ben Askren to be too slow, too old, and just not skilled enough to beat somebody who trained in boxing for 3 years. One of the main talking points here was the fight being fixed. Do you think it was fixed?
I don't. I think trying to fix a fight, I was going to say, with that magnitude, it's still quite a big fight if you look at it in hindsight. But I think it would be hard for him to try and script a fight. Would Ben Askren be able to pull it off? Probably. He's a genius. He's a clever guy. But I think it was just a good punch, and I think Ben Askren's days are numbered, and I think we've seen the last time he's ever going to step inside a combat sport ring.
Absolutely, Ben Askren looked terrible, and anybody that saw him hit pads knew he was going to have a terrible performance. That was not a high-level fighter in there, and I knew we wouldn't see a high-level fighter there. Jake Paul's obviously not a high-level fighter either, but he has the basics down. I don't even know if Ben has the basics down. So I don't want to see Ben fight in any form again. Maybe grapple, but that's about it. Other than that, who do you think Jake Paul should box next? Because there's a lot of conversation. You saw Tyron Woodley confront him prior to the fight. Who should be next for the problem child?
Mm-hmm. I would like Dylan Dennis. I think a fight between him, Jake versus Dylan Dennis. Obviously, Jake would probably be the favorite in that one because, let's be honest, Dennis ain't a great striker in his own right. He's a grappler. But I think the shit talk between them two would be, unmatched. I think it would be incredible. Leading up to it, I think the press conference would be really good. A lot of shit talk. There'll be a lot of heated arguments, should we call them? But yeah, if we're going to choose, I've got two at the top of my head. I'm either going Dylan Dennis or Tommy Fury. I think them two are definitely the ones that he should go for. I know he's called out who do you call Nate Diaz? That fight's never going to happen. But as someone in the comments just said, he should fight Francis Ngannou next. I think everyone in the MMA community would love Jake Paul to step inside the ring with Francis Ngannou.
Yeah, I know he's just putting on an act, but something just annoys me about the guy. I don't know what it is. He just finds a way to get under my skin, and I would love to see him humbled. I do believe he'll get humbled. I don't know who will be the guy to do it. Maybe Bisping, maybe Tyron Woodley. Who knows? Those are two names who legitimately want to fight Jake Paul, but it's being realistic. We're going to have to go with Dylan Dennis to box him next. Dennis, of course, has been calling him out for about a year now. He's coming off of a surgery, which is the reason why we didn't see that fight happen last weekend. Now's the perfect time. Dylan Dennis says he's ready. It'll probably happen later this summer, and it'll probably produce another 1.5 million pay-per-view buys like this one did.
Yeah, 1.3 million pay-per-view buys, 65 million pounds or dollars generated. That's incredible for someone who's only 3 fights deep in their professional career. It's completely unmatched, and he's going to break records for sure. Whether you like it or not, he's gonna break some records. This guy's got tremendous his tremendous support behind him throughout his YouTube subscribers, all the followers that are coming over to watch his boxing bouts. He's gonna break some records. But yeah, I would love to see him getting humbled though. I think I'd love to see him maybe still win the fight but get pushed to his limits. I think then we could really call him a legitimate fighter. But he was calling himself an elite boxer before this bout, and I was just thinking, What are you talking about? You have your 2 fights in your professional fight, your career. You call yourself an elite boxer, and you fought an NBA slam dunk champion. I don't even know who that guy is, and Nate Robinson. And then before that, you fought Nissan Gibb, who's a YouTuber. And then before that, you fought Deji, who else is a YouTuber. How are you calling yourself an elite boxer? It just makes no sense. And before we move on, though, I want to talk how disrespectful Jaylene Love was to Tyron Woodley. That guy, he was disrespecting him. Tyron Woodley is, a Hall of Famer, and Jaylene Love is not even has never been a world champion inside the boxing. It doesn't make sense. The highest belt Jaylene Love has held inside boxing is an international belt. It's not even a world level belt. It speaks for itself. Tyron Woodley got that belt in the UFC, defended it multiple times. Jaylene Love never, ever reached a world title. The guy was so disrespectful to, a Hall of Famer. It was just incredibly upsetting to see, in my opinion.
Yeah, Tyron Woodley versus Jake Paul is at the top of my wish list because we know what Tyron Woodley is capable of on the feet. Ben Askren is basically capable of nothing on the feet. Tyron Woodley has knocked guys' heads off and sent them into orbit. If you remember that Josh Koscheck knockout, the Robbie Lawler knockout, Jake Paul would likely join that club if they were to fight.
I would definitely love to see that matchup, just because I think Tyron Woodley, has a legitimate chance against Jake Paul. He was, an elite level fighter inside the UFC. He's been an elite level fighter in MMA for a decade, almost a decade. He's fought some great guys over at Strikeforce, came over to the UFC, won the belt. Defended the belt, knocked out some great guys, beat some great competition. Darren Till, Robbie Lawler, Steve Wonderboy, controversially, but you still beat him. But the names under his record goes on and on and on. Yes, he did, fall off at the end of his career, but that happens to everyone. And unfortunately, it did happen to Tyron Woodley. But I feel like this is a great way to kind of, get himself back into the mix, kind of sort of thing. If he goes in there and beats Jake Paul, everybody in the MMA community would love Tyron Woodley.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget, his last loss was against Luke, and before that, it was all top 3 guys. So you can't even really fault him. And on the feet, he would do terrible things to Jake Paul. He may be a little smaller than Jake Paul, but the power he carries is absolutely insane. And he's also got cardio. It looks like he has a better chin than Ben these days. He's in much better shape. He's quicker. I don't see why Jake Paul would accept that fight at this point, unless he's really thinking he's ready for Conor McGregor.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think he's ready for Conor McGregor. Yes, Conor McGregor is not a boxer. He's an MMA fighter, but we've seen, he hanged around with Floyd Mayweather a little bit. He paid his dues, against, arguably the greatest boxer in the history, and Conor McGregor stuck around with him for almost, I think it was for 10 rounds. Incredible. But I think if we're talking hypothetically, I would love Conor McGregor to go over to Jake Paul and they box, and McGregor just knocks him out. That would honestly make my year. It would make me feel that 2020 never happened. It was always in the distance. It would just completely make my decade. It would be incredible.
Yeah, but what a 2021 fact I have for you. Robbie Lawler could not knock out Ben Askren, but Jake Paul from Disney Channel could. Absolutely insane. This world we're living in is just ever changing, and let's change over to the UFC now. Robert Whittaker had the performance of a lifetime against Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum really offered nothing for Robert Whittaker, and Robert Whittaker put a stamp on his victory really by just offering stuff for Kelvin Gastelum on the ground as well. I thought maybe if it went to the ground, Kelvin Gastelum could try to control him there. No, Robert Whittaker even got the takedown at the end, and just he made my Robert Whittaker by decision bet drama free. It was pretty easy for Robert Whittaker that night. Do you think Whittaker and Adesanya has to be next? Because we saw Marvin Vettori out there begging for the Adesanya rematch.
I think there is no other contender, in my opinion. There is no other number one contender other than Robert Whittaker. Who else is in a position like Robert Whittaker in the middleweight division? I don't think Vettori deserves it as of yet. I think he's got to get maybe 1-2 more wins.
Yeah, honestly, I do think Marvin Vettori should fight Jared Cannonier next, and we should see Derek Brunson and Paulo Costa. After those fights, maybe we'll get some answers, but Whittaker has beaten 3 super solid guys, all guys that Adesanya either had interest in or already fought. Marvin Vettori beat him. Jared Cannonier nearly knocked him out in the end. Darren Till got a unanimous decision, or was it a split? But it was quite definitive. Robert Whittaker has done enough. In fact, I already thought he did enough after he beat Jared Cannonier. So Robert Whittaker and Adesanya should be next. And who knows, it could be in June because the UFC wants to sell out every pay-per-view now in a full sold-out arena. And that June card, while it does have a really good fight on it, that's really not going to sell a lot of tickets. So Adesanya probably wants to get on that card.
Yeah, you said there Vettori versus Jared Cannonier. That would also be that would be a great fight. But maybe maybe Vettori versus Costa on number one. Whoever wins that gets the next shot after Whittaker Adesanya, because it has to be Whittaker versus Adesanya next. I don't see no other option. It has to be Whittaker versus Adesanya. The rematch, it has to go down. Vettori needs to fight at least once or 2 more times to get that, guarantee him a shot at the world championship. But Vettori versus Costa, maybe that's the fight to make, to kind of, a number one contender fight, maybe, shall we say, because Whittaker should definitely fight for the belt next. And that's all I've got to say. I think Vettori should maybe fight Costa.
There's a lot of interesting options for matchups at middleweight right now. I do think that these past couple fights we've seen at middleweight have really caused a lot of movement. The Vettori fight against Holland last week, was it? That really put Marvin Vettori in the spot he needed to be, but just not good enough. The only situation where he would have gotten the title shot would be if Kelvin Gastelum got a super boring decision. Other than that, it just wasn't his night, and he didn't look too happy when he was sitting ringside because he realized that Robert Whittaker is at the top of his game right now, and he 100% should be in the title fight next.
Well, let's talk about some grizzled vets. Andrei Arlovski edged out a split decision versus unanimous decision. Against Chase Sherman. What's your thoughts on the decision? Because it was a great fight between the two, a lot of back and forth. Did it go to the right man?
Yeah, yet another fight I picked correctly on this card. Andrei Arlovski did what Andrei Arlovski does. He gets decisions, and he plays it safe. We saw him get rocked early on against Chase Sherman, and that really had me concerned because I really thought Arlovski should probably win this fight, but we've seen Arlovski take damage and still be able to come back. And I don't like the narrative that people put out there that Andrei Arlovski's chin is gone. It's pretty clear to me that this guy can still take damage. Of course, he'll get completely annihilated by the top of the food chain. But Chase Sherman is not the top of the food chain. And he proved it here. Chase Sherman looked desperate in that third round. He was saying, let's meet in the center. Let's brawl. No, Andrei Arlovski, he fought a smart fight. He did exactly what he needed to do. And he's now tied with Michael Bisping for third most wins in UFC history. So this guy has a very storied career, and it might be coming to a close. A matchup I do like for him next is Alexei Oleinik. 2 vets going at it. That would be fun. What do you think about that matchup?
That was probably the best matchup you could probably make with Andrei Arlovski. Maybe Alexei Oleinik, but maybe Chris Daukaus. That would also be a fight that would entertain. But yeah, I think the Alexei Oleinik one makes a little bit more sense because legend versus legend fight. Daukaus is on a good run at the moment. If I believe he just beat who did he? JDS maybe.
No, he didn't beat JDS. He beat Alexei Oleinik.
Oh, Alexei Oleinik, yes. Who just beat JDS? Oh, Garn beat JDS, and then he got cut. Yes. Chris Daukaus, just beat Alexei Oleinik, finished him. So yeah, that's a smart fight. But yeah, and a great name under a great name under Dorcas's resume if he does get the win. And I feel like if you want to get to the top of the heavyweight division, you've got to go through a vet. And Chris Dorcas, if he fights on Arlovsky, it would be a great way for him to, kind of further his career, get to the top of the division. And I feel like Arlovsky is going to be a test to anyone coming up through the division because he's a veteran. He's seen it all. He's definitely going to put you to the challenge. But let's talk about a lopsided decision. Jacob Malcoon versus Abdul Razak Al Hassan. This is about as one-sided as you can get.
Absolutely. Before we talk about this, let's mention what was the original co-main event, Jeremy Stephens and Drakkar Klose. It got canceled the day of the fight because Drakkar Klose apparently got concussed from a shove. What do you make of that?
Concussed from a shove. It doesn't add up. To be honest, it really doesn't add up. Maybe some neck strains that makes sense. Maybe a bit of numbness. We know he's the hardest hitter at 145 pounds, but hardest pusher at 145 pounds. I'm not too sure about that. 155 actually. I'm not too sure. But can a push really do that to someone? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't really see a push being able to concuss someone without them. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, it was extremely confusing for me when I read that he had a concussion from it. I've seen plenty of people get shoved and they just shake it off. It's really nothing. But I don't know what Jeremy Stephens' arms are made of or whatever, but that was just very confusing. And my biggest takeaway from it is Drakkar Klose might be a little fragile, and could you imagine what a nice elbow from Jeremy Stephens could do to him instead? So I'll just say that, and I'll definitely be betting Jeremy Stephens by knockout when that fight gets rebooked, because it probably will. It's got some steam behind it. All right, let's talk about what Malcoon was able to do to Hassan. I didn't go too deep into the preview for this because I thought Hassan would do what Phil, not Phil, what's his name? The guy that knocked out Malcoon? Phil Haas, yes, Phil Haas.
Phil Haas,
Phil Haas did to Malcoon was insane. It was 17 seconds he put him out, and Abdul Razak Hassan is the kind of guy to do that, but he was unable to. Jacob Malcoon came in with a very intelligent game plan. He out-wrestled him. He out-grappled him. He went for a ton of submission attempts, but I did know that Abdul Razak Hassan was a black belt in judo, so he probably wasn't going to get caught in anything silly on the ground. So Malcoon was just content with beating him up on the ground, and that's what he did. Malcoon really earned my respect here because I was thinking he should get cut from the UFC if he lost here, but I do think he belongs after seeing this. Do you think a matchup between Malcoon and possibly Andrew Sanchez would be fun to watch?
That would be very fun to watch, but I feel like maybe that's not yet because Andrew Sanchez is a great fighter. He just beat Wellington Turman, knocked him out, just lost in his last fight. I'm not too sure on the top of my head.
Muradov.
Muradov is an absolute killer. So maybe a few more fights, then he could fight Andrew Sanchez. But next, who would I put next up with him? You got any other names in mind?
Let me think. Possibly the winner of Soriano and Hernandez coming up.
Mm-hmm. Maybe Rodolfo Vieira.
Wow, this middleweight division is like very underrated, if you ask me. At the bottom, you have like a ton of guys that are on the cusp of the top 15. We saw the best of them in Kevin Holland just show up and get into the top 10. A lot of these guys are very underrated, if you ask me. Moving on, let's get right into this fight right here. We had Tracy Cortez fight Justine Kish, and I had a lot of money on Tracy Cortez to win this by decision. And this was closer than it needed to be, if you ask me. I thought Justine Kish was doing a decent job on the feet, and Cortez actually wasn't able to get the takedowns like she has in the past. Do you think Cortez is ready for a step up in competition, or does she need to stay at the level she is right now?
I think she needs to stay at the level she is for now. For now, I think she needs to get a few more fights under a belt, and then maybe take that step up in competition. This is a good test for her, though. You know, getting challenged, getting pushed the full 15 minutes, split decision as well. You know, so one judge for Justin Kish won that fight. That that's something that Cortez will probably go back, look up, and say, I don't want that to happen. I want unanimous decision wins. I want dominant victories. But Cortez, she's got a great, phenomenal potential. I feel like she can go maybe become a contender in the future. But as of now, I mean, she needs a few more fights to kind of really cement her place, or at least try and get into the rankings. But I do like a future matchup with her and Antonina Shevchenko.
Yeah, that would be really fun. We've seen Shevchenko struggle on the ground before. She's shown somewhat of an improved ground game, but what Chookagian did to her was nothing short of impressive. So Cortez probably could do that to her, but she does need to improve that striking because it didn't look too great that night.
Well, onto the split decision, onto another split decision. And a lot of people might have thought it could have went the other way. And I know one of them is that who I'm speaking to right now. Oscar thought it should have went the other way.
Absolutely. This was clear as day to me that Munoz won rounds 1 and 2. He hurt him really bad in that first round, and that was the biggest moment of the entire fight. In that second round, the striking was a little close, but he got those takedowns. So I don't know how you don't give him that round based on those takedowns that he was able to get. Luis Pena showed somewhat better takedown defense, but as I said in the preview, Munoz was going to be able to get him down, and he should have won this decision, but I don't know what these judges were thinking. We saw 4 split decisions in a row. Something's up with these judges. We've had a ton of events in Vegas, and they've just been drama-free in terms of scoring, but this night they were a little off, and this was one of the fights, unfortunately, that resulted in a bad way for me, especially from a betting side. I was watching this live. I was like, all right, Munoz was probably ahead, so I bet him, and nope. These judges were just way off tonight, and I don't think Pena should be rewarded too much, because this was very competitive against the guy in Munoz who doesn't have a ton of experience. So why not put the 2 tall guys in the division against each other? Pena versus Roosevelt Roberts. Book it.
I thought you were going to say Jalen Turner, but Roosevelt Roberts, that's a good fight.
Yeah, I think Jalen Turner would probably mess up Pena on the feet. That guy's got some good pop in his punches.
Definitely. You put it there, nail on the head, talking about that fight. We'll talk about a few more before we kind of talk about who was last week. Actually, this weekend we got UFC 261. We got quite a big show to get through. We'll quickly talk about a few more prelims. So we'll talk about the Romanov, how that ended.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on it? Do you feel like he was milking it a little bit?
At first, I thought he was milking it just to get more rest. He laid down. I was like, all right, this guy's going to get his gas tank up and running again. But nope, that was not the situation. We saw that Romanov cannot take a nut shot. I've seen guys take harder nut shots and just say, I need like 30 seconds. This guy took all of 5 minutes, and the fight was called off. He needed assistance in getting up. That would probably be my reaction, but most fighters really don't react that way. I don't know what Juan Espino's knee is made of, but that was just very strange. And to see a technical split decision, that's really weird. And this was very much a 2021 fight with how weird it was.
So when the fight did come to an end, how did you have it on the scorecard?
I actually thought Juan Espino won it. He was winning that third round before he got, because he was controlling him when he hit him, because that's how he's in that position in the first place. So he was already controlling him. So I thought Juan Espino should have won here. I would like to see a rematch in the future, to be honest, because I do think this fight would not go this way 10 times out of 10. I thought Romanov was going to get the knockout here, but Espino's grappling really impressed me. And even though he's 40, it's very apparent that he's not done, and he could still compete with some of those guys in the top 15. So do think Romanov should fight somebody at the same level, because I don't think he's quite ready for the top 15 yet.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Maybe he's 14-0. That when you're in the UFC, you're 14-0. It's always looking pretty. But with a fight like this, you probably need to take maybe few more until you try and get into the rankings. So let's try and think of a fight outside the heavyweight rankings that we could match him up with. Who just beat Jorgen de Castro?
That was the Mountain Man. What was
The
his
Mountain
name?
Man.
Danho.
Danho, that's it.
Yes.
Romanov versus Danho.
That makes a ton of sense to me. I think that would be a favorable matchup for Romanov, but at this point, he might need somewhat of a favorable matchup, because I thought his cardio was going to be better, but it completely failed him here. He has third-round finishes on his record, but it was definitely not against the same caliber of competition as Juan Espino.
Mm-hmm. So we'll quickly talk about a few more. Jessica Pena versus Lupita Gundaneles. I don't know how to pronounce that one, but that one ended in controversial fashion once again. A lot of people thought Lapidita got it done tonight, but Oscar, who do you thought got it done?
I thought this was yet another robbery. We saw Pena just looking for any submission she could and not getting a single one. She really didn't do any significant damage, and that's what the judges should be looking for. She just had some control time. I don't think that was enough for her to win the fight. I do think she could have won a round, but that was about it. We saw Godinez bullying her, basically, when it came to the striking, and she literally power bombed her. She just tossed her around. I thought she was in control of the fight, and she was putting herself in those bad positions because she didn't really feel threatened. So I don't think this fight should have gone to Pena, and she's probably gonna lose her next one, because we saw that the striking is still not good. At 40 years old, if your striking is still not good, it's probably never going to be good. So she's going to struggle against these strikers, especially somebody as dangerous as Amanda Lemos or somebody in that category.
Yeah, she had been away for quite a long time. I think she got hit with a ban from the USADA, and there was talk of her being banned for life. But I think she got that reversed, and now obviously she's competing again.
Yeah, I don't think she was doing anything. It was obvious that she cleared her name and stuff, but I don't think she's fit for this division anymore. She didn't look competitive on the feet, and she was just hoping to get a submission. And this strawweight division is the best women's division in all of MMA, and I don't think she can compete at the highest level.
Yeah, so we'll quickly talk about Gerald Meerschaert quickly getting that submission in round one. Guillotine choke, absolutely, put the lights out. Fabinski choked him out unconscious. Got it done easily, in my opinion. Got going to the fight to the floor, submitted him with that guillotine choke, and then ended the night pretty quick. Where should we go with Gerald Meerschaert? Maybe where should we go with him next?
Yeah, I do think this was the right matchup for Meerschaert. This was a guy who was hoping to just out-grapple him, and you really can't out-grapple Meerschaert for 15 minutes without getting caught in a submission. And we've seen that Fabinski is not that good out of escaping submissions. And I predicted this one 100% accurately. I thought Meerschaert would get him while they were trying. He got him while they were trying. I do think a matchup like the winner. Who's Antonio Hoya fighting? I don't recall, but if he wins that, I would like to see Hoyo and Meerschaert, because Hoyo is a black belt in himself. So I do think that would be a fun matchup, and it would be a matchup that would be winnable for Meerschaert. And also, a lot of people are saying that Meerschaert was done because he was coming off of two knockouts in about a minute combined. but it was actually brain trauma left over from the Ian Heinisch fight that likely led to that quick knockout for Hamzat. He came back like only a couple months after, so he was likely already damaged from that. Do you think Meerschaert and Hoyo makes a ton of sense?
Yeah. Is Hoyo maybe fighting Eric Anders?
No, I think that one was scheduled at some point, but no. I can look it up for you right now. What did you think of Meerschaert's performance that night?
Yeah, it was a clean performance, and you mentioned that if you're trying to grapple with Meerschaert, you're going to get caught in the submission in that 15 minutes, and it happened to be he caught him in that submission early on, 2 minutes into the fight, and he's going to be dry. His opponent Fabianski, he was dry, so it's easier for him to get caught in that submission, and he put his lights out.
All right, I have the matchup for you. It's going to be a fun one. Tom Breeze will be fighting Antonio Hoyo. So the winner of that should fight Gerald Meerschaert. That fight is booked for June 5th, so that's not too far away. That makes a lot of sense for Gerald Meerschaert's next fight.
Okay, move down the card. Austin Hubbard returned back to winning ways versus Dakota Bush, by unanimous decision. Good performance. That's all we say. Good performance, looked good in control. But yeah, Austin Hubbard returns back to winning ways, and Tony Gravely puts out Anthony Burchak's lights out, left hook, and then hammer fists. A wrestler using his hands and knocking people out. These wrestlers love falling in love with their hands.
Yeah, I thought this would be a third round ground and pound knockout for Gravely here, but it looked like Burchak just wasn't that good on the feet that night. And Gravely was able to land shots on him. And as I said, Burchak probably can't compete at the highest level in this division. So it's on the next one for Gravely. I think they should rebook him and Nate Maness, because that was actually supposed to happen on this card, but Burchak stepped in on short notice.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the pay-per-view if you don't mind.
Oh, we're recapping it. We're previewing it in its entirety.
Oh yeah, our preview shows on
later
on Thursday. Oh yeah,
so doing it right now, but
we've got a bit
what
of
do
time.
you think we should do?
We'll do it on Thursday.
Recap of the main card?
Yeah, we could do a quick.
Sure.
We could talk about it if you are UFC 261.
Yeah, we'll just do a quick little preview for the title fights. Not go too deep into it because. We'll have a more detailed breakdown for you later in the week.
Actually, we could probably fill it up with we'll talk about the Ultimate Fighter. Ultimate Fighter 29.
Oh, yes.
Premieres on June the 1st.
Yes.
Volkanovsky versus Ortega. Is there any names that you've seen on the cast that jump out to you straight away?
Honestly, I'm not too good with names when it comes to the Contender Series guys. I usually remember that they exist when they debut in the UFC. And some of those names did pop out to me. They seemed familiar because they were already on the Contender Series. But not really. I really can't remember anybody at the top of my head. But bantamweights and middleweights, those divisions are already pretty stacked already. So it's gonna be fun to see what those guys come up with. But the Volkanovsky and Ortega back and forth promo, not that exciting. It's not even as half exciting as the Jake Paul Ben Askren press conference. I don't know, man. That might have not been the best move, but it's what they had to do, and I don't blame them. I don't know how good the season will be, but I hope some good talent is coming out of there.
Yeah, I'm trying to show the cast right here, but I believe I have it on my screen in a few seconds. But yeah, there is one name that immediately, I don't know why. I don't know who I don't know who he is. He might have been on the Contender Series, but Vince Murdoch.
Yes, yeah, that was the guy. Yeah,
he might have been on the Contender Series.
Out.
Is there anyone? Well, actually, hold on. Cameron Lachinimov. I'm pretty sure he used to fight for Bellator.
Yeah, I'm terrible with names. If I haven't seen the guy fight multiple times, it's probably not going to stick. So this is pretty hard to do. But I do think Murdoch wins because I saw him on the Contender Series and his wrestling was on point. So that should probably put him ahead of the other guys.
Yeah, Cameron Lachinov. He used to fight in Bellator, and he's incredibly entertaining. I remember watching one of his fights. He got punched in the head, and he started growling at his opponent. So he's incredibly entertaining.
What?
I remember him now. I remember him. Yeah, go watch his fights. Cameron Lachinov, 10-3 inside in his career. But yeah, not a lot of names that kind of instantly jump out. Should we do a quick? Who's your early prediction winner for bantamweight and middleweight?
I don't know any of the middleweights, to be honest. But I will say that for bantamweight, I am picking Vince Murdoch because he's got the wrestling, and on the Ultimate Fighter, you always see guys that struggle with wrestling. So Murdoch might even be the first draft pick for one of the coaches.
I'm good. I've got two in mind. I've got Mitch Raposo and Joshua Rentinghouse. I think that experience from Joshua will be huge. This is something obviously he hasn't experienced before, but he's been in the cage a lot more than most of the people on the show, except from Vince and a few guys at the bottom. But I'm going to pick Joshua Rentinghouse purely based on experience.
Absolutely. That experience will get you very far in the Ultimate Fighter. I'm in the middle watching the Ultimate Fighter 10, where Roy Nelson was absolutely schooling these guys. What he was able to do to Kimbo Slice and Brendan Schaub and all those other guys. It was because he was more experienced than those guys. So if you got more experience, you'll probably do good in the Ultimate Fighter.
You just remember, he used to just get these guys inside control and just count his punches. He used to go to the ref and just go 1, 2, 3, 4, and he would just wait until the ref stopped it. It's a smart way, because if you're the ref and you're refereeing the fight, and the fighters are going 1, 2, 3, 4, that's going to play in your mind. You're thinking maybe I should start to stop this soon. But yeah, Roy, it was an incredible season. That was Rampage and Evans, I think.
Yes, it was, and Brendan Schaub maybe was the biggest name to come out of there.
Yeah, and we have James McSweedy on there as well, the Brit. His record's terrible. On that show, they were bigging him up, saying that he was going to win, but yeah, that didn't happen. He has a chin of glass. Yeah,
it's a show where they had Ross Pointon on, who I think he retired on a 10-fight losing streak or something like that.
Oh, that bless him. But yeah, so the Ultimate Fighter 29. So we'll end it after we talk about this. Yeah, Ortega versus Volkanovsky. Probably not going to be the most entertaining with the coach wise. That there isn't going to be many shit talk between them, little back and forth. There isn't going to be any of that. Maybe from Ortega's side, but I don't see Volkanovsky, trash talking Ortega.
Yeah, we saw the most recent season where Juan Espino and Macy Chiasson won. A lot of people probably don't even know those people came from the Ultimate Fighter, because that's how little people watched it, because Whittaker and Gastelum, you saw those guys. They were buddy-buddy. There was no beef whatsoever. Guys. And I don't think that there was too much beef there with Volkanovsky and Ortega. Just a little friendly competition, and that really has never drawn much.
Yeah, exactly. A great way of putting it. If you look at the most, successful seasons in the TOF, obviously you had the first one. Obviously that exploded because it was the first one. It was Sign Canoe. But if you look at some of the ones that have really took off, Rampage versus Evans, TJ versus Garbrandt. Yeah, that was an incredible.
McGregor, Faber.
Yeah. Aldo Mendez, that didn't do too bad.
Wait, that was a tough season?
Yeah. Was it Aldo Mendez?
Was it a Brazil one?
Yeah, I think it might have been Brazil one. They did, on top of my head, did they do a Kane versus JDS? I think that might have been Brazil too.
I don't think they did. They did Brock and JDS. One season
Brock and JDS, that's it.
Yeah. That's where Tony came from. One season I'll never forget was Chael and Vanderlei. A lot of people called back to that when they remembered the Stevens and Close push. They were saying that I can't let you get close, using the his name. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So we'll end it off here. Make sure you tune on Thursday, where we have a preview show of UFC 261, a pay-per-view that is not to be missed. 3 title fights. Jessica Andrade versus Valentina Shevchenko, Weili Zhang versus Rose Namajunas, and at the top of the bill, Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal, a rematch for the welterweight championship of the world. It's going to be a very, very, very good night, and I can't wait to preview the card on Thursday with Oscar.
Yeah, those prelims are very interesting. You got a lot of Chinese fighters coming over. They'll likely be make a big splash in the UFC, and that main event is very interesting because we've seen Usman become more and more confident in his striking, and he can't get too confident against game-bred Jorge Masvidal.
All right, quickly before we end it, one fighter to look out for in UFC 261.
I would have to say that would be Jimmy Croot and Anthony Smith. We've seen Jimmy Croot to be super explosive, and we have seen a lot of third-round comeback finishes from Anthony Smith in the past. So if that fight goes in that third round, we could see Anthony Smith pull out a third-round submission just like he did against Volkanovsky.
Yeah, I'm going to exclude the 3 title fights.
Do you think that's going to be...
Yeah, the 3 title fights, obviously, everyone's going to be watching them.
Of those 3... Yeah, of those 3, that's a no-brainer. Weili Zhang versus Rose Namajunas could be the best women's fight of all time. We just don't know just how many punches from Weili can Rose take, because we did see Rose get rocked against Jessica Andrade, and we saw how easily Weili Zhang disposed of Jessica Andrade.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see Tristan Connolly back after he beat Michelle Pereira. Went out for a very not a long time, but he's been away for a short while. Interested to see how he, copes at 145 pounds. He fought against Michelle Pereira at 170. He's dropping down 2 divisions. It's incredible. But yeah, I would have to agree with you. Anthony Smith versus Jimmy Croot is probably the fight to look out for. Other than the titles.
One fight that is... Yeah, fight that's 100% a coin flip is Weidman and Uriah Hall, because Weidman is obviously the better grappler, but we've seen his chin let him down on countless occasions. So if Uriah Hall does not clip him, Chris Weidman wins that fight, but will Chris Weidman avoid getting clipped? That's the question.
Well, we'll find out on Saturday night, UFC 261. From me and Oscar, a very goodbye. Make sure you tune in on Thursday. We'll recap the show live here on MMA Unhinged YouTube channel. So thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.